Greetings, salutations, and a big old howdy to everyone who is tuning in to the Deacon Speaking podcast. I'm your host for the next several minutes, and I couldn't imagine anywhere else I'd rather be than right here with you, unpacking the joy of life through the love of Jesus Christ. I am Deacon Tom Scarlett, and I am your Deacon Speaking. I am the Speaking Deacon. Now, as a deacon, I have had the pleasure of a large and growing pool of deacon brothers, most of which, at least those in our archdiocese, have developed into deep and lasting relationships. We support each other, we complain to each other, we sing joy in support of each other's ministries, and we give each other a hard time over the simple things, just as you might expect guys to do. And I love every minute of being a deacon. It is truly a calling. It's truly a blessing. But the older that I get, and the longer in the tooth that I become as a permanent deacon, the more and more that I start seeing the fondness of days past, and I start realizing the good times shared become those things referred to as the good old days, when it just seemed at the time as our treasured moments together. Now here's a case in point. I was ordained a permanent deacon in 2017 after a full year of discernment and 4 years of study and formation with 20 other fellows. Over those 5 years together, we grew quite close and got to know each other quite well, and friendships grew, some closer than others, but we found our groups that we gravitated to. Those relationships grew deeply, and they were sustaining. They were true, and they were meaningful. I recently attended a 3-day deacon retreat on the holy grounds of St. Meinrad Archabbey. This was a familiar place for all of us, as our program was formed from there, and we frequented the grounds yearly to fall into the seminarian schedules and pray with those living their fullest monastic lives. When I stepped onto the familiar grounds of the monastery, checked into my room, and began to tread the trodden trails of the monastery halls and places, I was immediately greeted by the ghosts. But not before running into my dear friend Steve, who was parked upon a wooden bench, walking stick by his side, journaling, as he has faithfully done for years. When I sat with him, we caught up, and we remembered Tony. Tony was the completion of our triad, our youngest ordained in our class, and the first of our class called home to God a few years ago. It was bittersweet to be at this place where Tony laughed with us, and he prayed with us, and he loved with us. Steve reminded me of a typo Tony made in a group text with us. Intending to type woohoo, he instead typed woo-boo, and we were quick to point that out to him. And for a few years, woo-boo became our closing text to each other. It was a term of endearment, a message of support, of love. I befriended one of the resident monks in my first year, Father Columba Kelly, he began his monastic life in 1952, a brilliant musician and choir master. He passed away a year after our ordination, and his ghost visited me during morning prayer as I saw his name printed at the bottom of each chant that we used. I welcomed that old ghost with a very small smile and a glance to where he regularly sat, and I missed the smile that he would return to me during our yearly visits, and he would take my hand between his, smile while looking me in the eyes, and would always say, "I'm praying for you." Paul from our class no longer attends, having succumbed to illness earlier this year. But his ghost comes to me on those grounds as memories of his voice and his intellect and his gentleness. Now, the ghosts of the monastery aren't ghosts at all, but they are the embers of love that remain aglow in our hearts, and they're fanned by our familiar haunts, becoming brighter and warmer as we warm ourselves close to them. And I love fanning the embers and welcoming the ghosts into my prayers and silence. I believe God gives us this as a gift to be able to be transported in time to a place of love without leaving the here and now. It really is a wondrous thing to exist in two places at once, in the past and in the now, and it is the way that God has hardwired us, another way of showing us the mystery and the miracle of His love through the undying love of others. I look forward to visiting the ghosts of the monastery again and to relive the blessings of memory. The sweetness of ministry really is the relationships built through the love of Christ. I suppose the sweetness of life is those relationships built through the love of Christ, but I repeat myself. Life can be the ministry that you allow it to be when you realize that God's love is our purpose and everything else falls in line with it. Once a life is lived with Him first in your hearts and on your lips. I guess the message is this: don't be afraid of the ghosts of your heart. Don't seek to erase the scars that the healed wound leaves behind and all the memory that those scars bring back. They really are quite enjoyable to visit for a time, these ghosts of ours. And I pray that someday a friend of mine will sit on a bench somewhere, sometime when I'm gone, that they might offer a small smile and perhaps even a whispered woo-boo. My friends, we revel in the love that God pours out on us in both past and future relationships. Don't be afraid to embrace and approach them as a place where love lives. This is the Deacon Speaking Podcast, and I am Deacon Tom Scarlett, your Deacon Speaking. I am the Speaking Deacon, and I offer you this: be good to yourself and be good to others. And do know that I love you dearly and am praying for you regularly. And I will see you back here next week.